This week on Street Stories, I'm exploring what life is like for the green zoners living on the fringe of the red zone. The street looks like any other, but just over here, I'm in the red zone. Many of the houses lining this area have been demolished. They're either broken or abandoned. So what's it like for those fringe dwellers, those living on the edge of the red zone? This is what it looks like when the occupants of 7,500 homes leave at once. Dozens of streets and even whole suburbs have been abandoned. From the top of the Port Hills to the edge of the estuary and along the banks of the Waimakariri, almost no eastern suburb has been left untouched. Following the earthquakes, more than 8,000 homes were zoned red. There are 46 owners of flat-landed properties who have yet to settle. 359 owners of Port Hill properties have until the end of August to accept a Crown offer, while 133 red zone property owners have declined any offer. The majority of people who used to live in suburbs like this have left. However, for people whose homes are green zoned but live on the edge of the red zone, what choice do they have but to stay? Who would want to buy any home backing onto streets looking like this? In a future episode, I'll explore what it's like for Christchurch green zoners, but this week I'm in Kaiapoi. In September 2010, the township was devastated by a 7.1 earthquake. More than 3.5 years later, the green zoned residents of Kaiapoi's Grey Crescent are completely stuck. They won't be moving anytime soon. This tight group's part of a cluster of homes around the edge of the red zone. Every day they have to drive down roads looking like this.
You can't really get away from it, it's just everywhere you go.
Tonight, members of the street have gathered for a meeting. These neighbours are a mixed bunch. Some want to stay, while others want to go. After nearly 4 decades in Grey Crescent, Nolene Latimer was devastated to learn the home her first husband built had been red zoned. She couldn't bear the thought of leaving, so she had the zoning reviewed, turning her home from red to green. Her partner Alan Winter wants to move on, but she's adamant they stay put.
I had made my mind up very early that I thought Nolene should move, but the decision is hers, and that's why we're still here.
And how much does that place mean to you?
Everything. My life.
Debbie Boatwood's home is the only rebuild on the fringe. She's excited for her new home.
I'd love to stay, definitely love to stay. My husband has got other opinions, but we've had the house revalued and financially it would not be worth us taking it.
Mike Sheffield loves the community, but he would pack his bags tomorrow if he could find a buyer for his place.
Although our place is not damaged, it's been fixed now, and our section's been fixed and it all looks nice, property values in the area have changed, and who wants to live right next to the red zone?
Maddie and Philip Pottinger have lived here too long. They wish they were red zoned so they could leave.
Because of the surroundings that we're living in, we would like to move on, basically.
It's dark by the time the meeting winds up. Walking out onto the street highlights how scary life is for these green zoners living on the edge of the red zoned abyss. Abandoned homes hide in the shadows. Boy racers can be heard taking full advantage of the empty streets.
Yeah, listen to that.
He's doing a
He's
donut.
doing a donut.
He's doing a donut.
This is what we have to put up
We have
with.
to put up with this all the time. This is what happens. There's a couple of kids around the corner and they're always doing it. And they just come through here, they think it's a racetrack now. And no one will do anything about it.
With so many homes demolished, the remaining residents feel isolated. Many homeowners are now renting out their properties to strangers. This once vibrant community has lost its character.
You get a lot of young kids that have been renting around here and they just walk the streets, they smash the windows, they do graffiti up and down the street.
Maddie and Philip lock their gate every night. It's the small things that make the fringe dwellers feel safer. Strangely, these eerie, empty streets can be scarier than the people.
It's really dangerous actually. I just about fell down a wee hole over there. You've got to really watch where you walk. I wouldn't normally be out here in the dark at all. I walk my dogs during the daytime and I drive home during the daytime. But as you can see, it's potholes and leaves, and when it's really covered in water, You have no idea what's underneath it.
So are the streets as scary for those who chose to stay? Brent and Shirley Cairns declined the government's voluntary offer, choosing instead to continue to live on the property they've owned for more than a decade. To keep out any unwanted prowlers, they've made sure everyone knows their home.
Well, guys, your house is a bit like a Christmas tree.
We want to make sure that people realise that we're still here, and so we put in solar lights and they turn on themselves. And really it just shows that we're still living here. Don't forget us.
Unlike their green zone neighbours, these two aren't worried about what goes bump in the night.
Because I'm a member of the Volunteer Fire Brigade, we've had 2 arsons in this particular street, but that was some time ago. As the properties are cleared, the less and less chance of arson because there's nothing to burn. So subsequently, it's a matter of Sarah getting onto their demolitions and getting them completed, and then we'll be perfectly fine. But as you can hear, it's pretty quiet out here. It's like living in the country, but close to all the amenities.
But it seems at night the country life turns into the Wild West.
This is the problem that we have, is that there's certainly some people that love to drive down here at a huge rate of knots because they think that there's nobody living down here. But let's just hope that we don't actually have an accident, because
we're listening out for the bang, actually.
Yeah.
Listening out, boom.
The creative couple craft sculptures for a living. They don't want to leave their studio or their home. They're determined to live in the red zone.
It's our private property rights to choose where we want to stay, and we love living here. It's close to the centre of Kaiapoi. Shirley's an ambulance officer. I'm a volunteer firefighter, so it's close to the station. It's close to all the amenities, and at the end of the day, the offer was purely voluntary.
Brent and Shirley might be brave enough to walk the streets at night because many of their surrounding homes have already been demolished. But in Christchurch, the amount of damage is on a larger scale, and many homes still sit empty. Latest statistics from Sarah suggest the government is on track to demolishing the unoccupied red zoned houses by the end of the year. But exactly how much work do they have left to do? We'll find that out later. Coming up, flooding and sinking house values. How many downsides are there for these green zoners? And have the red zoners made the right decision?
The building total value is $25,000.
These empty streets aren't a pretty sight. Graffiti, rubbish, it's all part of the territory. Who would want to buy a home on the edge of the red zone? These green zoners are concerned these will be the last homes they will ever own.
My husband and I do have a bit of stigma about the fact that we're 3 doors down from the red zone and nobody would want to buy our place.
Their property values have gone down, so even if they did manage to sell their homes, they can't leave without taking up a second mortgage.
The land value went down 50,000.
Although we'd like to stay here, it's not financially viable to move.
We've got a mortgage, and to go anywhere else, like Sovereign Palms or anywhere like that, we'd have to borrow another $100,000. And we're not really in a position to do that, so we're staying.
The drop in their land value is nothing compared to properties in the red zone.
Our valuations prior to the earthquakes was $350,000. Now for our house and our land, so that's 360 square metres of building, total value is $25,000. It's incredible that the Crown and Quotable Value have come up with this imaginary number which now declares that our land and our properties is only worth $25,000.
With a valuation like that, there's no turning back. The couple are planning to rebuild their home once they know the future of the red zone. For the foreseeable future though, this is likely to be their last house. They're uncertain whether they will ever have insurance again. However, they're confident they won't be losing their essential services.
If the council were to do that, then they would have to probably fight that in a court of law, because that's depriving us of our legal rights to essential services. So subsequently they would, it's a human right to provide us with our essential services. We pay for them. It's not as though we're not paying our full rates. We're paying our share.
Christchurch has had national media attention over the last 8 weeks for all the wrong reasons. In March, a 1 in 100 year flood turned streets into swamps. Kaiapoi was also hit, but has barely made the news. While we were filming, light rain quickly flooded these streets, and during the storm 2 weeks ago, Grey Crescent was swamped. Debbie feels like Kaiapoi's issues have been allowed to wash away. Old news.
They have. I feel like they have forgotten about us.
Local Labour MP Clayton Cosgrove feels the same about Kaiapoi.
Almost 4 years this September coming up, and we're still languishing like this.
Last week he had 13 residents of Bracebridge Street in his office, demanding answers for why their street was flooding. While Christchurch's Carrick Street and Flockton Basin were back in the news, Kaiapoi had sunk without a trace.
The water here goes into garages. They have to wade through it to get in and out of their properties. It's not at their houses yet, but it soon will be, they tell me. So these are reasonable people, but what they're asking is, look, somebody's responsible. Can you tell us what the problem is, and can somebody do something about it?
Cosgrove's arranging for all affected residents to meet with the Waimakariri District Mayor David Ayres this week to discuss the problem.
If it is the case that it is not the council's responsibility, but is a responsibility of the government that owns the red zone, then the next door I will be knocking on will be Mr Brownlee.
Kathy was one of the 13 to knock on Cosgrove's door. She wasn't impressed to wake up to a flooded street last weekend.
2 or 3 houses down, the people have to pump the water out of their garage. Actually, there's 2 houses down there that have to do that every time it rains.
Her home is a rebuild. Kathy gets a brand new home next month, but that doesn't make the situation any better.
And I'm just a bit worried now with the new house built. We want rid of the water too.
While the residents of Bracebridge Street are crying out for help, other Kaiapoi streets were also badly hit. Grey Crescent residents stay indoors whenever it rains because they don't want to risk driving their cars through water like this.
Every time it rains out there, it floods.
It's close to getting right across the road now.
Yeah, and it's only been drizzling. When it's heavy flood, it goes right up our gates.
Waimakariri District Mayor David Ayres knows about the flooding issue, but says there are no flood mitigation plans in the works.
It does flood, but there are also parts of Kaiapoi that flooded that aren't anywhere near that area. So there are some continuing issues around flooding in our district. I think we'll see a lot of talk this year, but I think a sense of direction will emerge from that, and people in that area, Grey Crescent, Feldwick Drive, there's quite a few houses in that general area who are affected, and they will they'll have a sense of direction, I hope, in the next few months.
Clayton Cosgrove says the government may need to step in.
This isn't as big as Flockton. There aren't the issues of as major as Flockton that we know of, but it does require government to be supporting our council, and this council will move like lightning, I'm sure, if it's their responsibility, but if they are hamstrung and handcuffed through a lack of government decision making, then there's not a hell of a lot they can do.
Coming up, the residents of Grey Crescent say they've found a way to pay for their flood mitigation, but will it work?
We can't really understand why they're maintaining a red zone park. The council's maintaining it and it's in lovely condition and you can go and play there if you want. But nobody does because no one lives around there.
Kaiapoi green zoners are sick of driving through the red zone. They're also fed up with the flooding. They want the roads fixed. They even have a solution for the council on how to pay for the work. They want the council to use the ratepayer funds that normally cover the cost of maintaining parks like this. The Kirk Street Reserve is located inside the red zone. The surrounding streets are empty of homes or families, and yet the council continues to maintain it.
We can't really understand why they're maintaining a red zone park. The council's maintaining it and it's in lovely condition and you can go and play there if you want. But nobody does because no one lives around there. So we just think the resources could be better spent.
We visited twice, 2 separate days, 2 separate weeks. Both times the reserve was empty of life. The local residents say they never see anyone using the reserve. Even the red zoners don't bother with it.
No, we've got such a big section here. We've got 1,379 square metre section, so we've got lots and lots of room to roam around in.
So why is the council maintaining it? Would the money be better spent on the roads? Waimakariri District's mayor admits the council looking after a red zone park does sound bizarre, but says he won't be stopping the work anytime soon.
I think for us to not maintain those areas to a certain extent sends a signal that we're abandoning a community and we're not. And people are free to go and use the playground equipment in Kirk Street Reserve as they always have.
Do you think it's a good use of money?
It's a very small amount of money considering the budget of this district's parks and reserves.
How much money is going towards those reserves?
I don't know, but it's we're not talking about a huge area, and we're not. This district has very many parks, very many playgrounds, and Kirk Street Reserve. Same with the Corcoran Reserve, which is also in the red zone. We're on the edge of it. These are not big amounts of money.
Mayor Ayres is ruling out reallocating park maintenance funds to fixing problems on the fringe of the red zone, and Labour MP Clayton Cosgrove is backing the council for maintaining the park.
What the council's trying to do is keep all its options open. If Mr Brown is going to say we're going to put a big fence around the red zone, that's it, well okay, that'll be it for the reserves. But if he says, look, we're going to make this into parkland, then those reserves are there. You end up, if you don't maintain them, spending far more money.
The government's promised to announce the future of the red zoned land by the end of the year. A campaign has been launched, and former red zoners are being encouraged to share their ideas on what should happen to the land. Shirley and Brent Kens, two red zoners, recently received their letter about the campaign.
Until decisions are made about future use, it is difficult to confirm exactly what this might mean for us. So we shall see. At least we're going to be part of the decision-making process.
The couple fears if enough people want Cass Street redeveloped, they may be forced to leave their home.
And you can see when you read the letter that it's a twist. They're twisting it around so the public are against us, and they're like going to say those jolly red zone people are messing up all our plans, and cunning plan.
Or it could be. Well, we don't know. It depends. It really depends on what the future use of the red zones are.
Whether or not the couple do end up having to move is unknown, but they aren't the only ones wondering what the future holds for these deserted streets. Alan Winter's getting impatient with the time it's taken.
In 3.5 years they haven't got far, so I might not live long enough to see what's going to happen to it, because it's pretty slow.
In the Waimakariri district, 638 Crown-owned properties have been demolished in the red zone. That means roughly 2/3 of the job is done, while another 356 dwellings are waiting for the wrecking ball. But that wrecking ball also has to knock down more than 2,500 flatland homes in Christchurch. Currently, 54 dwellings are cleared each week. That number will soon increase to 300. Green spaces are popping up in Kaiapoi, but in many streets, places like this still sit empty and ugly.
Well, here you've got a house that's been graffitied, windows smashed. You wouldn't know if a squatter was in there, you wouldn't know if somebody was setting up for a burglary or to burn the place down. And then across the road you've got the green zone.
The government says it's on target to clear the entire red zone by the end of the year. But Labour MP Clayton Cosgrove isn't so sure.
If they're saying by the end of the year, look around you, I don't, we're getting towards halfway through the year now, I don't see that target being hit.
In January last year, media were invited to admire the first block of red zoned land to be cleared. A 25,000 square metre area in Courtney Drive used to be home to 23 houses. But following earthquake damage, the homes were demolished and the block of land was tidied up. That work cost $75,000.
So this was our trial area, and then we'll look at the ups and downs of this, we'll see what we've learnt, and then replicate it right across the residential red zone.
More than a year later, and the red zoned land in Courtney Drive is looking wild and out of control. Residents have told me the place looks terrible, and they can't believe that this home has yet to be demolished. Courtney Drive was first hit badly in the September 2010 earthquake. Green Zone neighbours say most of the street left then and haven't come back. Many homes in Grey Crescent have also been demolished. Sarah has yet to tidy the street up. Nature is instead reclaiming this now empty land. It's not giving the residents stuck here any hope.
The rest of the street will be great if the rest of that street, or the rest of the front of the street, gets grassed and tidied up and what they have been promising us to do.
Brent and Shirley Cairns don't mind. They're living in paradise.
We can actually see the mountains now that they've actually demolished all the homes, so we can clearly see the mountains. All the wildlife is starting to return.
But this isn't the lifestyle the Greens owners are seeking. Grey Crescent is a green pocket awash in a sea of red. The residents hate the fact they're forced to drive through the red zone to get anywhere. They would love to have a dedicated road built, connecting them to the rest of the township.
Somewhere along the line they're going to have to make a decision on making an alternative access. Why not now rather than later? They're just fudging the whole thing and they want to brighten their ideas up.
Clayton Cosgrove says that without a clearer idea of how the red zoned land will be used, the District Council can't be blamed.
Their hands are tied to a greater extent, because you're right, they need to be planning, do you have a road going from green zone through red zone to green zone? If you do that, one, you've got to know where you're going to put it. Two, it then requires lighting, drainage, footpaths, roading, etc. The only way the council can make that sort of decision is once Mr Brownlee has made his series of decisions.
That actually depends on some agreement with the government over infrastructure, and that will actually come earlier than that consultation and engagement over the future of the zone, so that people know where roads are going to go. And we are certainly considering a road connection from that northern area.
Some Grey's Crescent residents think they might have received a new road sooner had the Cairns not decided to stay.
It's a catch-22. We know they want to stay, and that's fair enough, but I think it's impacting on us as well, just slightly.
And certainly see their angst about having to drive through this area. I think once all the land is cleared of the homes, it will certainly look a lot better.
It's an interesting contrast. The Greens owners aren't happy with their situation. On the other hand, the Cairns family are calling themselves leaders. They're certain it won't be long before others join them.
This land is really good quality land, and it's close to the amenities. This is going to become extremely valuable in the next few years, because all you have to do is look at Beach Grove, which is the latest subdivision not very far from here. If they can build there, they'll certainly build here.
For now, these TC3 Greens owners living on the frontier of the red zone are stuck in limbo. But in 5 years' time, will this still be the case? Will this street ever be a great place to call home again? Or is the dream over for these residents? And that's this week's Street Story.